This is what we call a scatter plot. And a scatter plot is essentially how we represent two groups of data on a single graph, right? What's this saying? It's saying that if I have a point here, it's one of this value and less than one of this value. A great example, height and arm span, right? If you want to measure someone's height, you measure someone's arm span. Stop whacking people in the face, guys. Then we can plot that on one singular graph. That's this one over here, okay? But what I said was that we have different types of correlation. So in this situation, we can see that these graphs all look quite different. How do they look different? Different shapes. What kind of shapes can you see, Chelsea?
Well, the first one's like kind of a line going upwards.
Yep.
One's like all over the place.
Yeah, this one here maybe. That's kind of all over.
The next one's negative.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you're talking about positive and negative, right? So that's kind of looking at your gradient or your sort of direction, I suppose, if you want to think about that. Maybe something like this could be positive, something like this could be negative. And then the other thing that Chelsea talked about was sort of, how would you describe like,
Strong weight.
okay, yeah, have you guys done that before? Or,
Kind of.
yeah?
It's kind of like intuition.
Intuition. common sense. Sorry, Thea, we're not quite on your level yet, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So there's exactly like you guys said, and it's kind of a hint in the question here, right? We're looking at the type and the strength, right? So what are the types and strengths? Well, let's have a look at this. Let's look at types, as you guys said. So we'll have positive correlations, and we have negative correlations.
What about no correlation?
Well, that's another good point. So let's put those down first. And the idea is these two are just thinking about your gradients, essentially, right? It's essentially looking at, okay, is this going up from left to right or down from left to right? Basically thinking about your gradients. Then going on to Josh's suggestion, what does a no correlation look like then?
That's like the one that's all over the place.
Right. So something that doesn't seem to have that linear relationship, we can't really describe as positive or negative. It has no correlation. Those are things, and basically those are things that are unrelated in a sense. Okay, so that's types. Strengths, as you guys sort of worked out, strong, moderate, and weak are generally the ways that we talk about it. Now, again, just to put a disclaimer, there's probably a bit of subjectivity in terms of what's really a defining feature of a strong, moderate, and weak. We kind of look at that visually. There are values as well that we can consider, but for the most part, there is that element of subjectivity there. So just kind of keep that in mind. Yeah. Okay. So let's have a look at these. What's easy to identify? Probably the strong and weak ones before you do moderate, or maybe the no correlation ones. Do any jump out to you immediately as one or the other?
B is no correlation.
No correlation? I'm happy with that.
I guess you could say it's good, but it's not really got a strength.
Yeah.
If you have no correlation, you're probably not, you're not really going to describe it with a strength, right? Yeah, because the idea is there's no correlation. The idea is that you either have a strong positive or a moderate positive or a weak positive, yeah? So I guess it's probably actually easier to start with the type of correlation, right? Like these ones we identified as positive and negative, right? Any others that are easily identifiable?
F would be no correlation.
Where's F? This one here?
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I think it's no.
Weak.
But it's extremely weak.
That is
It's
not.
really weak.
It could be either way.
Hmm.
Look at that line going the other way.
It's
So like, is the line going that way or is it going that way?
There's nothing. It's like an X.
Let's leave that one for now. We'll come back to that one.
so it's intuition.
Okay. It's just intuition. Let's go to these ones. D and E. What about D and E? Yeah, negative. So you're looking at your gradients basically. You're looking at a line that looks like that, essentially, right? This one here is probably positive. What else we got? G is negative. Good. Bless you. Positive and I? Negative, yep.
But very weak.
Yep. And so now we talk about the strength, I guess, right? Because it's almost kind of anchored by what we're given is what we kind of determine the strength. Because if we have something that is like pretty much a straight line, then we would say that was strong or almost perfect, right? But I mean, the strongest one that's there, if I was going to say, maybe A and C, right? So we could say these are strong positive, and these are strong negative.
Those are strong.
Say that again, sorry, Chelsea?
It's like we're comparing them to each other though. Like if
Yeah.
the other ones, how would you define them?
Almost, yeah, so if you were given one by itself, what would be the best way? What I would say is, and I'll show you a few questions like this, they have to give you some sort of comparison, or they probably wouldn't, they would probably give you some options that would make it clear, right? So they probably would say like, you know, describe this correlation as either strong positive, strong negative, no correlation, or, you know, weak something. You know, it would be like they would have to give you options that are clear enough is what I would do at least, right? So let's say those are strong. What does it mean for the rest of our others?
I would be weak.
Weak, yeah. So we didn't even. What did we decide for I anyway in the end? Did we say that was positive or?
Oh, F. F.
Sorry, oh no, I. So where's I? Oh, I is weak. Weak negative, you reckon?
Yeah.
So weak.
I would be weak.
You are weak. What else we got?
D is more strong than others, so we can just say it's strong.
So moderate
Oh,
or strong?
I feel like H is
I feel
more.
like D is moderate.
Yeah.
D is moderate.
I feel like
I
D
disagree.
and
There's a lot of
yeah,
points that
H
are
really
looks pretty good.
It's more strong than it is not.
I think H is pretty. Yeah, I think H. If we're saying that A is strong, I think H should be strong.
Yeah.
G. Thoughts?
I think it's pretty strong. Again, it looks the same as H.
Yeah, it also looks like C kind of.
Okay, if it looks like C, we have to go based on what we've already defined.
they all feel strong.
They're all strong, you reckon?
No, I don't think E is.
I don't think E.
So what would you describe E as? You reckon? Moderate,
It's
you
not
sure?
weak, but yeah.
Moderate. D.
Moderate.
Yeah, because I guess it's
strong.
straight.
I think it's strong.
I think it's
Yeah.
strong,
Like
man.
some of
If it's
it's
straight
got so
line,
many
then I'll-
like it's more spread out though.
But it's got more like
It's more
outliers.
Yeah.
Oh, the fancy terminology. We haven't even talked about outliers yet. But Sean's on the ball here. He deserves a merit in the.
Moderately
No,
strong.
so there's more outliers.
I think
I
what.
think with A, if you
Yeah.
imagine a line of best fit
Yeah.
there, if A is strong,
Yeah.
then D has to be strong.
Can I just say something about something that distinguishes perhaps A and D?
Right.
I think one thing that may be slightly misleading looks like that A has more data points, right?
Yeah,
And so that seems to confirm that this trend is here, right? So that might be a reason why. Again, I'm not necessarily too interested in moderate or strong here. I don't necessarily think there's a correct answer. Whichever one you think. If I was to guess, I think I would say lean towards moderate, only because you're right. There are these sort of quote unquote outliers here. Whereas if you draw a line of best fit across here, there would be less distances. But again, it's a subjectivity thing, right? F, I actually think my first thought, like we did define this one as no correlation. This one here, you could argue no correlation, but I almost want to say weak positive. But
How? I don't know.
there is an element of that. But again, it's a very bad one.
It could also be negative.
Weak negative?
But then in that, to go that way, you get one of those.
What did Sean think? Let's ask the expert. What did you think? What did you think? What was your question, sorry?
What if it's just a horizontal line instead?
So like this. That is a good question. What do we think?
Wait, what is that one for?
It's not really a relationship then, is it?
Exact same on both sides.
Is there a relationship here?
But
It just,
no.
could that just mean they're just
Because
not
it means it's not
impacting each other?
affecting it, it's not changing, so it's not
Yeah,
affecting
it's
it.
the
Hmm.
same, so there's no.
I'm not too sure about that one, Sean. I'm going to get back to you. It's a good question.
Sean's the expert, so.
All right, so this one here, I'm just going to say it's weak positive, just so we can move on.
No,
Feel free to write no correlation if that's your stance. I know people have very strong opinions about their bivariate
I
data.
feel like a strong negative here on this one, guys. I'm just telling you.
I think that's everything there. Okay, so get those down.
Where is it?
You're talking to two investigators.
Oh, okay. So did the
Saying that there's
no correlation? Okay.
That would be like the R. What's the no correlation? I don't even know.
Be R0, closer to 0.
R0.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because R.
So,
Yep.
if you look at that in an exam,
Yeah.
you have to be aware of how you perceive.
Right, right.
How is that marked?
So this is the thing that I always say, right? There's sort of two issues with a problem like this. So Felicity's question was, hey, what happens if you get, let's just say F in a test, there's nothing else there, and you say, describe the correlation here. My first thought would be that it's not necessarily the best test question because there's so much subjectivity to it. But what I would say is if you are given a question like that, what do I always say if you're not sure of something?
Right, why you think
Yeah, exactly, right? Because it's kind of like they can't necessarily fault your logic if it makes sense. So, yeah, then you're screwed. Then you write, then you write next to them, please have mercy. No, I would be surprised if and I've been surprised before, but if they ask,
Comes up in the HSC.
yeah, exactly.
Would you like pay us each like?
I'm not going to pay you anything, but I'll show you an HSC question that hopefully sort of clears your doubts about how they would phrase the question, right?